You are watching or listening to Purham and Associates. For more information, go to rpurham.com or follow me on all social media platforms and subscribe at RPURHAM. Thanks. See you over there. Hey, good day to you all. Welcome to Purham and Associates. I'm your host, Randy Purham. Of course, y'all see me yesterday already. So hopefully y'all know who I am by now. After all these years anyways. But anyways, got a very special guest with us today. I'm excited to talk with him because we're actually going to do a little deep dive on something that's very important. But I'm not even going to really reveal what the topic is yet. Y'all can just go see for yourself. So that way I can keep you posted in here. Hey, we got none other than Bruce Torres. He is the Director of Communications for the American Small Business League. And with Bruce, his background, he's the strongest voice in America for the country's small businesses. He is a former marketing director for Trend Day Publishing, which published his book, God, School, 9/11, and JFK, The Lies That Are Killing Us and the Truth That Sets Us Free. At TNT Radio, Bruce interviewed 170 guests, including Lloyd Chapman of ASBL, Dr. Naomi Wolf, Dr. Merrill Nass, Dr. Peter McCullough, Mary Holland of Children's Health Defense, Dick Russell, author of The Real Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and Dr. David R. Meiswinkle of the National American Renaissance Movement. On his other podcast, he has interviewed another 50 guests. As an actor, Bruce has led roles in comedies, dramas, and musicals coast to coast. The funniest and most vocally gifted member of the show, said the New York Times. As an entrepreneur, he hosted hundreds of business networking meetings as he developed his marketing, sales, and public speaking skills. Ladies and gentlemen, introducing to some and presenting to others, Mr. Bruce Torres. Morning, sir. Welcome to the program. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you. Well, thanks for having me. A real fun and honor to meet you, Randy.
Absolutely. Same here. Tell us, are you still doing the podcast thing, or you kind of like left that alone and focusing on ASBL?
I'm doing a lot of podcasting through ASBL. As you know, we're interviewing congressional candidates, and then on the side, I also do my own podcast and interview people. Yes. Okay, awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, there you go. You can go check out his podcast, and we're gonna get into that too. Because as fellow podcasters, we gotta like help each other out, you know, because there's like a billion podcasters out there now, and they're just like, man, like, what do you tune into, you know? Yeah. So it's great stuff. Yes.
So
yeah.
I wanted to ask you, with your acting background, what was your favorite like production that you participated in?
A couple of them come to mind. I played Oscar Madison in The Odd Couple, and that was a hoot and a half. And there's nothing like being in a musical comedy to have fun. Mm-hmm. That's true. My Fair Lady comes to mind. I was just in the chorus, and I thought, we're working harder than the leads out there because there's so many costume changes and so many songs. You've got just a few minutes ready to get back out there. The whole life was fun. It really keeps you a child. It keeps you very, very playful, which actually is a challenge in real life, I found.
Yeah, no, I can imagine that. Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I dabbled around in high school, wanted to go into acting and but I was in choirs, so I spent I guess you could say my youth career in choirs, both in high school and in church. So I got kind of like away from it, and I was just like, yeah, I don't know if I like having to rehearse all the time for something, and then the performance itself is only 30 minutes or an hour. So it's that math wasn't mathing for me. So I was just like, I'm gonna join the military. There we go. So
and then you'll always be busy. Yeah,
exactly. Yes. Yep. Even in the military, it was always a production. We always got to do some kind of parade somewhere or something or another. So, but yes, over recent weeks, I spoken to a lot of business entrepreneurs, CEOs, folks of that nature, and the discussion has been largely geared around tariffs. The current Trump tariffs, the trade wars, and what have you. And I've been getting a lot of positive feedback on that front. But you at the American Small Business League, what are you guys seeing on that front when it comes to the tariffs?
Well, maybe the tariffs are causing the slow job growth and the job growth shrinkage, which could be more poetically said. And we see that logically the result of the fact that in 2010, the chairperson of the Senate Small Business Committee said, for every 1% increase in federal contracts to small businesses, 100,000 jobs get created. That's why we want to increase by 10% the federal contracts that are supposed to go to women-owned small businesses. By that math, Randy, that would create an additional 1 million jobs. Earlier this year, the Trump administration cut by 10% the federal contracts that must go to minority-owned businesses. We think logically that's going to cost 1 million jobs. We said this 6-7 months ago, whatever, and now the last few months of the job numbers seem to be bearing out that very simple logic and math.
Interesting, and you're absolutely right about that. The shrinkage has affected a lot of the not only the minority but just the population in general. So, with that being said, has there been I guess you could say a transference of these jobs from the federal to the private sector? So these people that are like entrepreneurs that was trying to start their own business, they just wasn't successful in getting a contract. Did they just end up just going to get a job in the regular sector, or are these just stagnant numbers across the board?
I really can't answer that. It just seems that if job growth is shrinking, it's because we see everything through the lens of what are small businesses doing. So if fewer small businesses are getting the federal contracts that they could, or actually that they should, and that's a whole other conversation, it's no surprise that job growth has slowed down because, Randy, here's the headline. A lot of people don't know, we are a small business nation. 99% of all businesses in America have less than 500 employees. That's the government's definition of a small business. 99%. 98% have less than 100 employees. So everything that helps small businesses instantly helps the whole economy. Everything that shrinks or takes away from what small businesses can do depresses the whole economy. So that's the main centerpiece of an idea that we exist to get out into the minds of people. And then we've got some real horrifying facts and figures about how the federal government is underserving small businesses. We've got some great ideas about cost-free, tax-free things that the Congress could pass, a new law that could get passed that would balloon our economy If the federal government really wanted to serve small businesses, unfortunately, we see them captured by the biggest businesses.
Yeah, that is true. That it has been a problem. I'm here in Texas, so in Austin to be exact, and down here, you see we have a lot of small business, a lot of little mom and pop shop type of deals, especially in the downtown area, and a lot of them seem relatively unaffected by big business of the similar market space. So, for them, if they were to get swallowed up, they probably would, end up, being under a big box brand name companies. Would that necessarily affect the job growth, or would it kind of like stay the same? It would be just like, okay, just another small business collapsed, but the employment is still there. How would that work? How does that work in your field?
Well, if I understand the scenario you just painted, it seems like a wash. There's no loss, there's no gain in jobs if employees get hired by a bigger company. What it makes me want to say is small businesses create 2/3, 3/4, some estimates 95% of all net new jobs are created by small businesses. Mm-hmm. We're seeing a trend in the last many years of small businesses really under pressures, really under attack. Millions were closed during the pandemic. A lot came back, but not all of them came back. Yeah. And if small businesses actually got the federal contracts that they're supposed to get, the federal contracts that the government says go to small businesses, they would create millions of new jobs to do the work of those new contracts they're getting. Mm-hmm. Let me pull back and just lay the foundation of some things that we've been seeing for decades. The law says that small businesses are supposed to get 23% of all federal contracts, okay? And every year, the Small Business Administration, which is responsible for making sure that that happens, declares victory and says, we met that goal. Very often they say, oh, we exceeded the goal, okay? But our 100 plus freedom of information legal victories have shown us consistently that through fraud, bad policies, and other obfuscations, in reality, small businesses get only around 3 or 4% of the federal contracts. Wow. And big businesses, which are 1/10 of 1% of all businesses, get up to 95, 96, 97% of all federal contracts. And they don't create any new jobs to do that work because they're already big. Whereas if small businesses got those contracts, they would create 2 million new jobs on top of the 2 million jobs that small businesses create anyway every single year. Randy, it would be an economic boom of gigantic proportions.
So you just said something that just struck something for me. So federal contracting is supposed to, by law, give a percentage, and I believe you just said 23% of the contracts to small businesses. Now, with that, is the market for I guess I want to frame this question is do the small businesses exist to where they could meet that demand for those contracts, or is it or do they not exist so they have to resort to giving it to a big business? Is that a factor at all?
It must be to some degree. Our impression for decades is yes, they can deliver. They do sell what the government buys. The federal government, the United States government, Randy, is the largest purchaser of goods and services on the planet. The official contracting or procurement budget is $800 billion projected for 2025. Many people add up what the government buys and says, no, they really spend 1.3, 1.5 trillion every year on contracts for goods and services. But it's part of the obfuscation that the many agencies are allowed to be exempt from the contracting requirement. So if 1/2 or more of federal purchases are not counted when the SBA adds up how many contracts went to small business, that's how they're able to say 23% of the contracts went to small businesses. But if you looked at the real 800 or the 1.5 trillion, and then you look at the fact that the government says companies with 500 or 1,000 or up to 2,000 employees, because of many distinctions and designations that each agency can claim, they can get small business contracts. That's the muddle and the fuddle that no president looks into and no administrator of the SBA looks into. So we are lobbying the members of the Senate Small Business Committee and the House Small Business Committee with this information. And we collected 1,300 candidates for the midterms next year for the House and the Senate. And we're writing each and every one saying, learn this, run on this. You will win in the midterms, especially, and I hope soon, maybe we're going to do it now, describe our Don't Cheat Women project, because that would, I think, save the country in many ways. Yes, absolutely. And that was actually going to be my next question is, over at the American Small Business League, y'all have a project called the Don't Cheat Women project. Go ahead and tell us about that and what people can expect from that. Thank you. ASBL.com is our main website. Don'tCheatWomen.com is our project site. And we want the requirement raised from 5% to 15%, the amount of federal contract dollars that must go to women-owned small businesses. And here's why. Women are obviously half of the population. They own 40% of all businesses, but they're supposed to get only 5% of federal contracts. For every year of your life and mine, companies owned by men have gotten 95% or more, actually more, of all federal contract dollars. That has to change, because without economic equality, women are unable to attain political equality, and it breaks down like this. It's just a fact that men earn and save more than women. Today, women in business and as career people and as earners are doing well. They're on the rise, and men are on the slide. We want to help that by increasing to a more fair amount the federal contract dollars that must go to women-owned small businesses, because that would, if that gets raised from 5% to 15%, it'll push from 23% to 33% the total federal contract dollars that must go to small businesses. And if the fraud got cleaned up and that actually happened, that would be $264 billion of business poured into our small businesses. That would be 3.3 million new jobs on top of the 2 million America typically creates every year, which would cause that economic boom of epic proportions we were talking about. Now, when women are doing economically better, here's what becomes possible. Right now, because men earn and save more, they contribute more to politicians running for office, so they have more influence at that level. It's easier for men to run for office. Men hold 75% of every seat in the House, every seat in the Senate, every cabinet position, and the seats in the state legislatures, okay? They hold almost 70% of every governor's seat in the nation, and they hold 90% of committee chair positions and party leadership positions. So they dominate politically because they're worth more. So everything that can help women get economically equal allows them to have political equality and and women do have, surveys show, different priorities and issues, different policies that deserve, an equal shot at the ballot box and also to be implemented as policies. Let's have the debates, but it's 2025. Let's do everything possible to have women achieve economic and political parity.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I totally agree. And it's, interestingly, I'm managing two congressional races here in Texas right now. One is a female, one is a male, and their platforms are, I'm not gonna say diametrically opposed to each other, but they're very starkly different. And you can see the nurturing, caring side of her platform, and he's more of a law enforcement. Let's make our streets safer. His platform is along those lines. So I guess you could say it resonates with the males, and then it resonates with the females. So it's interesting to see that, and it's so funny. Just right before we got on here, we was talking about the Don't Cheat Women Project and how my female candidate, she got that article and everything that y'all sent out, and she sent it to me, and she said, "What do you think of this? And let's develop some stuff from this." And I was like, "Yeah, this is awesome." Because I read through it, and I did not know the data that y'all presented, like to that magnitude. I see a lot of females that own businesses here in Texas, and the political side of the arena, being in politics here, it's predominantly women driven, believe it or not. So they may not hold office, but they're the driving force in it. So like we have the Texas Federation of Republican Women, and that is the huge umbrella of the political machine here in Texas. And so then you have all these women clubs, and I always chuck it up to, like, okay, the men are at work and the women, they got these clubs and they're doing these things, to stay busy. But no, it's actually the other way around. These women actually work. The husbands are the ones that stay at home, type of thing. So it's an interesting dynamic. Yeah. And I commend you guys.
For sure.
I commend you all for what you're doing out there, because it is important work that's often overlooked, and the nuance of it is kind of like it flies over people's heads because they don't understand, the dynamics of the impact that a woman in business not getting the share of the pie as they should, it actually impacts everybody else in the room. So I want to ask you. Sure. Well,
before the next question, Randy, I just want to add, some people say women are looking for handouts. Why should they get this, special help? It's not charity. It's not charity because women own 14 million businesses. Yeah. They generate almost $3 trillion in revenue. They employ over 12 million people, and they sell what the government is buying across the board, because being the largest purchaser of goods and services, the United States government buys everything, and there are plenty of women-owned businesses, and there could and should be more that can provide that portion. If it gets codified and gets boosted, heck, it would be a miracle if even the 5% current stipulation got met on a regular basis. Only twice in the last, I think, 40 years has the government successfully claimed that, 5% of all federal contract dollars actually went to women-owned small businesses. It's a gross misrepresentation and underservice.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right about that. I want to ask you next, like, what explain to the audience here, what is the American Small Business League? And I know there's going to probably be you probably get it. That there's a conflation of y'all are just like another arm of the Small Business Administration, and that may not be the case. So if you could explain what that
Not at all, no.
Exactly.
Sure, that does happen sometimes. We're a private advocacy group based in California, founded by Lloyd Chapman in 2004. By that time, he had already been successfully winning legal battles against the Small Business Administration, against the Pentagon, against NASA, against the Department of Energy, fighting to see who are the small businesses you say you're giving small business contracts to. And the revelations are nothing less than astounding. And his is a story worthy of a full-blown Hollywood movie back by the late 90s and then into the 2000s. Lloyd's successes would get him invited on CNN, Fox, MSNBC regularly. The major newspapers would call to write about his activism and his victories. Congressional candidates would consult with him. He met every president in our lifetime. And for about 10 years, all he had to do was win a victory, put out a press release, and the phone would ring off the hook, and he'd be invited all over the media. And you can search, well, definitely on our websites, you can see tons of these clips that prove this. Oh, also, his victories in these stories would motivate Congress to investigate these things. And there's over a dozen congressional investigations, Randy, that prove exactly everything that I've said about how regularly big businesses get billions of dollars of business as small business contracts. Also, the SBA's own Office of Inspector General found the same thing. However, around 2013, I think it was 2013, someone very, very high up made the decision, silence that Lloyd Chapman. His phone stopped ringing, no more media invites. I think PR Newswire or Business Wire rejected a press release, the next press release he wanted to put out. I believe they even told him on the phone or by email, we're not going to run your press releases anymore. And then he got busy doing other things, and now we're revitalizing our efforts because we're stubborn. And this is just the truth. And this is a thread to pull that we know can unite the right and the left, Republicans, Democrats, men, women, because it goes right into our wallets, and it's a gross disservice and injustice that someone has to hold the SBA and the president accountable for, because we're struggling unnecessarily and illegally because the law says this amount of federal contract dollars has to go to small businesses.
Thank you for that explanation, and I wanted to follow up with that because the ASBL as an advocacy arm, you're kind of like I'm not gonna say lobbying full time per se, but you're surveying and you're looking at how are the small businesses in America are being treated by the federal government. And then you sound the alarm, ring the bell, and say, hey, this is what's going on. You're being screwed over. And the government is saying, okay, yeah, we're actually giving business. We're actually taking care of the businesses, but they're not saying the small businesses. They're saying they're taking care of the businesses. And it's your role, you're coming in and saying, yeah, but you're not taking care of the small businesses. So with all of that, has the pushback, has it been largely the big businesses that are coming down saying, you know what, y'all need to shut up? Or are these like other small businesses that like unions and what have you that are doing these things?
We've gotten that kind of like censorship I mentioned. We've gotten that kind of interference with our messaging, which is really, and there are worse stories that have happened. And sometimes I get the impression Lloyd has talked about them on past podcasts, and sometimes I get the impression he just shares those with me. But there's been an egregious pushback against us. Suffice to say, we're just the kind of people that don't care, because for the sake of the truth and the sake of doing something good, because it's the truth that's at stake, and only the truth can set us free. And of all the decades of government corruption, all the different issues that many, many people talk about on podcasts, write books about, this is just one more. The American people need to hear another story of government messing us over like they need a hole in the head. No one of how the government is hurting us. Yet, this one would have very, very tangible results. And we think that candidates and we think that sitting members of Congress and the Senate could be greatly embarrassed when confronted with this and have to pony up and deliver the goods. Yeah. And right now we live in a climate where lots of hidden dirty secrets are being talked about. There's great contention, there's great debate and argument about who's right and who's wrong, but at least we're having the conversations, and that is that is the sign of a healthy democracy, and it is also the duty of the people to educate each other and then go, to the gates and rattle the fence and just say, we want to address this with you, and we want a change. We want things to improve.
Yes, absolutely. You're spot on with that, and I tell people all the time, I say, you know what, you have to be, in order for things to change, you have to be engaged. And if you're not engaged, then that entity that's doing the wrong, that's, doing the injustice, they're going to think that you're complicit. They're going to think that you're okay with being treated the way you're treated because you're not saying anything. You're not engaged in it. And it's like, oh, I just don't have the time. No, you choose not to have the time. And that's the problem that we have in this society, is that we choose not to be engaged. Not because we don't have the time. It's because we choose not to. And so, I thank you all for the work that you're doing, because it is highly important work. And before we close out, I want you to share any final thoughts you have and where people can follow you and support you, sir, and the organization.
Sure. Thank you again. ASBL.com for the documentation about our story about trying to stop the diversion of small business contracts to big businesses, and don'tcheatwomen.com, no apostrophe, to learn all about this particular project and also what you can do, and find the letter that everyone can send to their congressperson and their senator saying, hey, please raise from 5 to 15% the federal contract dollars that must go to women-owned small businesses, and get all the other basic information that we've talked about this morning. And final thoughts, Randy, it's to what you just said, how this is an experiment in self-government. So you and I are obviously the kind of people who've made the time to talk about these things and spread the word, and it's to challenge those who say they are too busy, or those who say you can't fight City Hall, to do something anyway, and to do something on a regular basis. When a larger percentage of people do one thing a month to try to influence your representatives to do something good, or go to a town hall meeting, go to a school board meeting and participate, that's how we will restore some of the freedom that's been taken from us in the last 20 some years, since really 9/11, and also have a much more honest and transparent and healthy government who really, really works more for our interests rather than the interests of the most rich and most powerful.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. You're totally right, and I'm gonna save my commentary about 9/11 and the Patriot Act for another show, because I got some thoughts about that one. But Bruce, thank you so much for being here today. I truly appreciate your time and the information that you brought. I learned something new. I'm sure the audience definitely learned something new, because this is just not something that's in the political conversation, or even the day-to-day kitchen table conversations. This is just something that people just fly over, and I thank you for bringing this to light, bringing this to our attention, because now people are armed with this information to go out and say, hey, what are you doing at the local level, the state level, the federal level, even, to say, hey, what are you doing to support, women-owned businesses? And they go like, oh, where did that kind of question come from? And I know it's going to be equated to some DEI stuff, and it's going to probably get to that conversation too. But it's not. It's totally different, than DEI initiatives. This is actually supporting, not only minority-owned businesses, but women-owned businesses, and how there are laws on the books. Until these laws are repealed, it is what it is. So, thank you, sir. Once again, I get on the soapboxes all day, but I appreciate you. Take care. God bless you, and be safe out there, and keep doing what y'all doing, and I salute y'all for your efforts.
Thank you so much, Randy.
Absolutely. Take care. Ladies and gentlemen, Bruce de Torres, the Director of Communications with the American Small Business League, which is a different entity, not even an entity of the Small Business Administration, as he explained, just so for those that just tuned in, probably thinking, this is a government organization. No, they're an advocacy group to take care of and protect, small businesses against the SBA. So I would highly suggest that y'all check that out and definitely look into this project. Don't Cheat Women. Here it is again for the visuals out there. The banner is under my chin here. Don'tCheatWomen.com. Go to that website and check out what it is that we were talking about today, because this is something that needs to be brought to the forefront. Like I said, here in Texas, Austin particularly, we have a lot of women that are in businesses, and they get a stiff arm. They do. You see it all the time, and it's a politically driven by women atmosphere here as well. This is something that they're probably it's not on the forefront of their mind, but it's probably something that they do think about. So I just want to share that information and get that out there to you all to help spread the word, because this is something that's vitally important. And we're coming up on midterms. We got ballot initiatives this November. We got a potential third call for a special session here in Texas. So these are things that we can gear up and put this in front of the governor even, and say, hey, add something, add this issue to the agenda call. And so there you go, folks. When you do something, you can make things happen. So I'm gonna jump up out of here and get my day going. I will catch you all probably tomorrow. If not, I will catch you Friday. If not, I catch you Monday. Just what it is, what it is. So, all right, y'all. Y'all be safe. Take care. God bless you all, and talk to y'all soon. I hope you enjoyed today's program. You can follow, like, share, subscribe on Spotify, Substack, Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, and your news. And also, you can download Let the Truth Be Told app on your favorite streaming platforms, such as Fire Stick, Apple TV, and Roku. Take care. God bless.